What's up guys, Duarte here with another Marvel Strike Force video, and in this video we are going to take a look at my recommendations for Dark Dimension based on the patch 5.10. In this patch we have two new teams. We have the Young Avengers and the Dark Hunters, and there was a lot of reworks to several characters, so we are going to take a look if any of these characters are going to make it for my Dark Dimension recommendations. Now, I made a video like 2 years ago, but that was the rules for Dark Dimension, which characteristics characters should have in order to be good for Dark Dimension. So if you never saw that video, check it out. There are many things that I say there, like the top 10 list around that. Reasons like having decoys like Ultron or Doctor Doom, or being able to turn rewind and apply control effects to the enemies. There is a bunch of items. I think it's a total of 10 of the things that make a character good for Dark Dimension. But we are not going to talk about that. We are just going to take a look at each of those characters, see my final list of recommendations, and that's pretty much it. Okay, so let's get started because we have a lot of characters to go through. And starting off with the first character of this patch, Echo. She's part of the Young Avengers, and this new character, she has very high stats in terms of damage. HP is okay, the armor is also okay, the focus is also okay, so not terrible for Dark Dimension. The problem is the speed. Low speed on Dark Dimension is something that you want to avoid as much as possible, and this is the case for Echo. And her kit does not provide any controlling effects, it doesn't provide a lot of damage, it doesn't provide a lot of survivability for her team, and the characters need to be flexible. If a character is way too much connected to its own team, then the character is not going to be super good for Dark Dimension. And unfortunately, it is the case with Echo. She's mostly connected to the Young Avengers, but to a point that is unsustainable to use it anywhere else. She is also part of the global characters, and unfortunately or fortunately, we have many good characters there, and Echo is not going to be part of that list. So let's move on to the next character. We have Kate Bishop, another global character. In terms of stats, she has a little bit low HP, so this is something dangerous on Dark Dimension because the characters usually have a very big amount of damage. We have a nice amount of armor, focus, and the damage is not terrible, but it's not the best. And she also has a nice amount of resistance. The speed is acceptable, 113, that's a good point. But beyond that, let's take a look at her kit and see their abilities. Okay, so she's able to remove positive effects from the enemies. That's nice, but it's not very common on Dark Dimension. Then we have being able to flip positive effects on the enemies. Once again, that's not very common on Dark Dimension and requires to be charged. It has a low cooldown, that's decent. The other part of the abilities is not so great. She also provides some buffs to her team, Young Avengers, but some of the Young Avengers, they are cosmic, others are global, others are city. So because the team is all over the place, then we cannot make a consistent team out of this. In terms of her ultimate, it requires to be charged. It has a very long cooldown because it starts with less energy than its full cost. So it's something that will take quite a long time to charge, and it's not very convenient on Dark Dimension. Even that the abilities that this ability provides are actually very solid for Dark Dimension. In terms of the passive, it gives herself a little bit of survivability with these two evades, but not super crazy. So it's not the best character ever, it's not terrible compared like Echo, but it's not going to be a main star on the Dark Dimension either. Okay, so now we have American Chavez, and American Chavez, she has mostly single target damage, and that's not something you want to see on the Dark Dimension. In terms of stats, her stats are actually pretty decent, nice amount of HP, nice amount of damage. The armor not so great, but with that much HP is not terrible. Nice amount of focus, and the resistance is okay, the speed is also decent as well. She also can buff a little bit other characters with her passive. She provides extra additional HP for hero brawlers, But unfortunately, hero brawlers, there are only a few on the cosmic lane where she belongs, and that's not super convenient if you're going to bring a character just to buff another one. She provides defense down and clears positive effects, but because everything is single target, American Chavez is not a good character. And the passive that now she is famous for, it only works on Alliance Wars defense, so therefore we have no use for her on Dark Dimension. Okay, so now we are going to talk about some more interesting characters. We have Miss Marvel. She's actually usable on the Dark Dimension, even that is a very low recommendation. In terms of stats, she has a nice amount of HP, the damage is okay, but she doesn't have many damaging abilities. She has a okay amount of armor, not the highest. The focus she doesn't need, so that's fine, and resistance is not excellent either for a character like her, which is sort of a tank. The speed is very low, and like we saw before, speed is something important. Now with her abilities, she has self-healing, she is a sort of a tank, she can give herself the flex, she can give energy to the allies. These are important things for a Dark Dimension. So the biggest problem is that she doesn't have a lot of synergies with other characters apart from giving this energy. She can give these additional assists, but it's not something super crazy that you can do on Dark Dimension, and you have to use only hero brawlers or brawlers plus young Avenger characters, so it's not the best character in terms of Dark Dimension. It has minor utility, and right now it's not convenient. So let's move on to the next character, Squirrel Girl. So she's the last character of the young Avengers, and she's the one with the most potential for Dark Dimension. Okay, so in terms of stats, you can see she has tons of HP. The damage is okay, even that she's not going to be the biggest damage dealer, she can still provide some damage and utility. Focus is great, which we need some focus on her, and the resistance is great as well. 120% speed, so you can see in terms of stats, Squirrel Girl is much better than everyone else for a Dark Dimension. Now in terms of utility, she can apply offense down to the enemies, which is great. She can also remove negative effects from her allies and heal them for a nice amount, which is great as well. And depending on which character you have with the highest damage, for example on my case it's Dagger, so whenever you use this ability and Dagger is on the same team, Dagger will apply bleeds to the enemies and also regeneration. So that's something that you can use different combos. If you use Symbiote Spider-Man, you can use him to apply defense down to the enemies. There are a few different things that you can use with the Squirrel Girl and her special. In terms of the ultimate, it's also very good for Dark Dimension because you're applying offense down to all enemies, and also heal block can be somewhat useful, and we saw that she has a very nice focus. Now, thanks to her new passive, now the young Avengers that match up with her have a tons of survivability. They get additional deflects, defense subs and death proofs, and in terms of city, where Squirrel Girl is part of, we have Miss Marvel. So Miss Marvel is going to benefit of all these additional effects. So if you are a big fan of the young Avengers, Miss Marvel together with Squirrel Girl will be good characters, or at least decent characters for you to bring to Dark Dimension. Okay, so now we are going to move to the next team, the Dark Hunters. And we are going to start with Mordo, which is not part of the Dark Hunters because he doesn't have the tag, but he also got a rework in terms of stats. In terms of kit, not so much, but we can still talk about him. Okay, so in terms of stats, he has a nice amount of HP, nice amount of damage, even that he's not the biggest damage dealer. Very big amount of armor, this is very convenient, and a very big amount of focus, which is great because we want him to apply as many negative effects as possible. Then we have a nice amount of speed, usable at least, and that's all for Mordo in terms of stats. Now in terms of the abilities, he's actually pretty decent on Dark Dimension, and the first reason is because he gives energy to himself, and he also heals himself whenever a character dies or a mystic character. That becomes very convenient, especially if you can pair him up with other allies that can summon enemies like Hela, for example, even that I'm not recommending Hela for Dark Dimension at this point in time. But if you can pair him up Mordo with a character that can summon other allies, he becomes very interesting. Now, in terms of his other abilities, the main event is for the special, because you can stun a character and then you can blind others, and that's very convenient on Dark Dimension. Stuns and blinds are some of the best abilities where you can use there. And his basic can also apply some additional negative effects, slow defense down and offense down, which are actually pretty decent. Now, so Mordo overall is okay, is not a terrible option in terms of cost. It doesn't have the highest cost, requires 3 sets of mini uniques, but right now there are so many characters that require the arcane magic uniques and mystic gear, and these other characters are so much more better compared to Mordo that unfortunately, even that is somewhat decent, the other characters are just so much better that completely outshine him. So let's move on to the next character, and we have Elsa Bloodstone. And Elsa Bloodstone, she's a global character. Mordo was cosmic, I forgot to mention. In terms of stats, she's pretty decent, nice amount of HP, nice amount of damage, nice amount of armor. The focus, it's fine, she doesn't need it, and the resistance is fine as well. The speed is decent, and she gets additional crit chance. Okay, so unfortunately, Elsa is not a good character for Dark Dimension. She doesn't have any major utility, she doesn't have any kind of controlling effects or anything like this. And the only benefit that she can do is to give additional crit chance to her mystic allies, which is nice, but on global there are not many characters that are mystic and that will benefit out of this additional crit chance. So unfortunately, Elsa is really a character that we really don't want to bring for Dark Dimension. Okay, now we have Ghost Rider. He's a city character. In terms of stats, he has very nice amount of HP, very nice amount of damage, armor, focus. He has everything that he needs in order to be an excellent character wherever you use him. Nice amount of speed as well, at 127 speed. The problem comes from his abilities. He is a good source of damage. Some of his cooldowns, for example on the special, are a little bit big, but if you can pair him up with characters that can give him energy, it's not gonna be terrible. Now, unfortunately, because he doesn't do anything else for the team apart from dealing additional damage, he also provides focus for his allies, which is decent in case you are using the Cloak and Dagger combination. But because we already have so many mystic characters, it's the same thing about Mordo. There are so many more better characters in terms of mystic that unfortunately Ghost Rider gets completely outshined. Like I mentioned before, even if it wasn't for that, the most he provides is mostly damage, and that's not all you want for Dark Dimension. Okay, so let's move on to the next character. We have the first new character for the Dark Hunters. We have Dr. Voodoo, and many people are saying that, oh my god, you need to bring this guy for Dark Dimension. And this is a big trap because it's not the case. So he's a global character and mystic as well. We already have plenty of mystic characters and we want to avoid as much as possible the mystic characters. Nice amount of HP, okay amount of damage, nice amount of armor, actually excellent armor. We have a nice amount of focus and we have a nice amount of resistance as well. The speed is excellent, 120% speed for this character, and he also gets additional speed from his passive. Now, in terms of his abilities, he provides some utility, but it's kind of a trick. This guy, I think many people will gear up this character and then they will be disappointed because he will not provide as much as people were expecting. On the basic, he does single target damage, not piercing. He steals death proofs from the enemies, which is fine because stealing death proofs are going to increase his speed, that's good. And heals himself mostly for 8% of his max health. That's okay, but we are not going to be able to use many Dark Hunters on a global lane, so it's like it's nice, but you have no one where to use it, so it's pointless. In terms of the special is very interesting, low cooldown, and especially nice because of his additional speed, apply ability block and defense down to the primary target and adjacent targets. That's going to provide a lot of additional damage. You are going to control enemies to attack themselves, which is cool, but it's not super crazy because unfortunately on Dark Dimension, when enemies attack themselves, they don't do as much damage as they do to us because they have tons and tons of HP. But this HP is going to be something that we have to question soon. He provides additional barrier to himself and to adjacent allies, but it's not super critical, this barrier. It's nice, it's more hit points that you have, but it's not super crazy. Now, one of the reasons people say that this guy is going to be excellent for Dark Dimension is because he steals health from the enemies. Well, I can tell you for sure, and this is not important. This was important in Dark Dimension 2, but after Dark Dimension 2 and Dark Dimension 3, the enemies don't have that much health compared to the damage that you can deal. In Dark Dimension 4 and Dark Dimension 5, you can easily dispatch out of all your enemies without this ability, and especially because this ability costs 8 energy and does not come full, it's like a fallacy. You are stealing energy, but it's irrelevant, and the cooldown is so big that it's irrelevant again. So you have 2 times irrelevancy on this ability. So if you are not using this character like on Dark Dimension 3, and even for that I really don't recommend, there are so much more better characters than this one, so don't fall into this trap. This guy, Dr. Voodoo, it's 100% a trap for you to fall in. Is not good for Dark Dimension. You can believe me, and I'm giving you the facts so you can think for yourself. He gets all this additional speed, and that makes him convenient. The cooldowns will be a little bit faster, but it's still 8 energy. It will still take a very long time to just steal 20 energy. You have to think, why is no one using Phoenix since she also steals 20% health? Because it's not relevant as it was in the past, and that's why this guy is not relevant. If 5 enemies have a speed up, you have additional crit chance and crit damage. That's cool, and it affects all allies, not only Dark Hunters, but it's such a situational scenario that you are not going to be able to do it on Dark Dimension, and you should avoid as much as possible enemies with speed up on Dark Dimension. This is one of the big red flags on your enemies. And then he has some Alliance Wars offense benefits, so be careful with this guy. Many people are thinking that this is going to be a good investment for Dark Dimension. It's not. Yes, he's cheap, but his abilities are not as good as some people are saying they are. Okay, moving on, we are going for Morbius. Morbius is another character like Ghost Rider. He is part of the city lane, mystic character. Nice amount of HP, nice amount of damage, nice amount of armor, nice amount of focus, nice amount of resistance, and the speed is excellent. The problem is, once again, like I said, is very similar to Ghost Rider. He does mostly damage, he doesn't have any kind of additional controlling effects like slow, stuns, blinds, energy control, or anything like this. So unfortunately, Morbius is not going to be a great character for Dark Dimension. He has some survivability thanks to this drain mechanic, but beyond that he's really not doing much, and he is very much locked to his team, requiring additional Dark Hunter allies and stuff like this. But like I just mentioned, some of these characters are global, others are city, so you have the team divided, and you cannot take advantage of these additional effects. So yeah guys, those are the new characters for Dark Dimension. As you can see, not many options for Dark Dimension in this patch. Though these are my recommendations right now for Dark Dimension. We have the city, global, cosmic, and legendary. Green, of course, is good investments. Yellow is decent investments, but be careful because these characters are falling off the meta, and the red ones are characters that can be useful on Dark Dimension. You can make good strategies out of these characters and they have good prices, but overall it might not be a good investment. We have Vulture and Misty Knight. They are usable on the tech nodes, on the raids, but they can provide additional strategies for Dark Dimension. Yes, it's true, but overall they don't work too well outside of these very specific scenarios. They are not so great. In terms of the secret, or in terms of global, we have Sabretooth and Wolverine because they are part of the best Alliance Wars offensive team, but outside of that they are not so great. Then we have some secret Avengers and the good Weapon X characters here. We have also Emma Frost. On the Cosmic, we have the Eternals, which are part of the Arena meta, Raid meta, and everything. We have Deadpool, which is an expensive character because she uses Miasma, but she has still a ton of value. We have Kestrel, Phyla-Vell, Moondragon. Yondu is pretty decent for Dark Dimension because of the minions he summons, and Nebula because she's still part of the top 3 Alliance Wars team. In terms of the legendary characters, the only characters that I recommend or that I'm 100% sure that are good to invest is Omega Red, Jubilee maybe, and Shuri. Everyone else has been falling off of the meta quite a lot or doesn't have exact use right now. I decided to put Invisible Woman and Dr. Octopus on the yellow because they are part of the Nowhere Heist event, Flash event, so it only lasts for 1 day. And Adam Warlock is still pretty decent, part of the best, part of one of the best Alliance Wars team. Ebony Maw, Black Bolt and Phoenix, not so much, but yeah, overall those are my recommendations. And you can find this infographic on my Discord, which I will leave a link in the comments below. And you can also find the infographic for the Young Avengers with how useful these characters are on different game modes, and also the T4 recommendations, ISO 8 recommendations, and additional information about how much gear you should give to them. And in terms of the Dark Hunters, we have all that information as well, the best game modes for each of those characters, the ISO 8 recommendations, T4 recommendations, team positioning, and also item recommendations. So yeah guys, that's going to be the video. I hope you guys enjoyed my thoughts on how useful the new characters are going to be for Dark Dimension, and my recommendations for Dark Dimension right now. I'm on Dark Dimension 5 doing the free-for-all nodes. I already completed them. I'm going to start the city part soon, and soon after I will be doing the global nodes, so make sure you also stay tuned for that. I will have a playlist on my YouTube channel with my Dark Dimension 5 run, and I will be live streaming it as it becomes available. Once again, you can find this infographic and the other ones on my Discord. I will leave a link on the comments, and that's going to be all for now. If you enjoyed this information, like always, make sure you smash that like button, and if you're new to my channel, make sure you subscribe for more Marvel Strike Force content, and I will catch you guys later.